about how to get job ready. So before you can spam applying on Seek, Indeed, LinkedIn, or start handing in your resumes even, what all should you have as a student or as a person who's applying for a job? Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video on the Down Under Diaries channel. I'm proud to introduce Sarah Parrington and really grateful for her and the whole StudyAdelaide team to be doing this video with us. And as a lot of you may be coming in, and in the future as well, a lot of people will be coming in to Adelaide, to Australia altogether. And probably the first of many, how should I put it, the first of many worry points is a job, how to get a job, what should I do to get a job? Okay, I'm applying here, I'm applying there. What should I do? And first, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and what StudyAdelaide does.
Wonderful. Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Parrington. I am the Student Engagement Manager at StudyAdelaide, which also gives me the great privilege of having the job that involves engaging with international students in Adelaide. And that also goes beyond just when you're here in Adelaide. We also do welcome activities as you're arriving into Adelaide. So some of you might see us at the airport greeting you there. But we also do other programs throughout the year that are what we would call social connection activities. So an opportunity to make some friends, build your connection. We also do some really fun other activities, but we also do a big area of work in employability. So that is about supporting students in finding a job while they study and also building your expertise and skill set ready for when you graduate from your course and are looking at your future career opportunities. That's a really quick snapshot of what we do here at StudyAdelaide to support you.
And just a quick question, that's both casual and professional jobs?
Yes, correct, yeah. So casual jobs while you're studying and then looking at those professional graduate career opportunities throughout your studies and preparing you for that launch pad after you complete.
Alright, let's get into the video. So this video is all about how to get job ready. I attended StudyAdelaide's workshop while I was in India. So I came here during COVID. So I was like, resume sorted, cover letter sorted, everything sorted. So if you could just give us an overview of what things a person should have before applying for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my very first tip in all of this is quality over quantity. So it's not about submitting 50 resumes and applications, right? It could be that you submit 10 high quality applications and that will do you a lot better than just, like what you said, spamming application. First things you need to understand is the way the job market works in Australia is different to every other country in the world. Every country works differently, right? So the resume that you have, that you may have used in your home country, may not be the resume you need to use here in Australia. So there are some things like you do not use a photograph on your resume in Australia. It's not needed, it's not required, unless you're going for a modelling job. You don't need a headshot. And you don't need to include your date of birth, your gender, your marital status, or your visa status on your resumes in Australia. So those are things first and foremost. Take them off your resume straight away. But the thing about it is prepare your resume. Don't just go, I know what I'm doing, and send it out. Have a think about, look at the resources that are available, and I will talk shortly as well around some of the resources we have available to you 24/7 that can help you in developing your resume. As well, in Australia, we are very much looking at evidence of your skills. So it's not so much about saying I am good communication. It's I have good communication because in this role as team leader at McDonald's, I had to communicate with my team members in order to deliver exceptional customer service. So it's providing that example of where you have demonstrated those skills. It's a proof point. It just tells an employer that you are more than capable of what you're talking about. And one of the things that can help you when you're elaborating is to think about what we call the STAR method. So when you're trying to explain something to someone, whether it's in your cover letter or in an interview, is think about what was the situation that I had to deal with, to give my example. What was the task that needed to be done? What is the action that I took? And then what was the result? And I feel a lot of the time people miss the result. And the result is really the key piece. I want to see the outcome of everything that you did. What did it lead to? So never forget to give the result aspect of it as well.
And just one question on the evidence sort of aspect. If they put their experience from their home country in their resumes, does it really make a difference, or is it just Australian experience that organizations here demand for.
No, your experience at home is definitely counts because it's valid examples of where you've demonstrated the skills. And it doesn't matter if it's not in Australia or if it's somewhere else in the world, you have demonstrated those skills. So that's a really important thing. I would really emphasize thinking about when you are looking at your examples, they don't have to be from the workplace either. So some of you might be coming here as 18-year-olds, coming here for your first time leaving home, coming to Australia, looking for a job, and you haven't had any work experience back home. And that's not uncommon. That's very common for many people. You have to find a job at some point in your life, right? So the thing about examples is they can come from other aspects of your life. They could come from your education. So perhaps you've done some group work at high school or at a previous university qualification. Perhaps you've been in a sporting team. So teamwork, communication really comes from a lot of teamwork activities in sport.
Yeah.
It could come from volunteering, and it can come from previous work experience if you do have any. So don't just think your experience has to be from a job.
Yep.
It can be from a range of different activities.
Yep. And do they need to provide certificates for it? So for example, if I was volunteering in my school, or maybe if I was the cricket team captain, do I need to provide any certificates for it while I'm applying for a job?
Yeah. So no, you don't need to provide the certificate directly to the employer, but on your resume, you could have a section called achievements. And you could have it listed there that you were the captain of your cricket team, for example, which again shows a really great leadership skills. It's an employer will be able to elaborate more on understanding that. Yeah. But it may be as well that you've arrived in Australia and you want to work in the bar industry or the restaurant industry, and you need what we call a responsible service of alcohol qualification, which is a really simple thing to do. And you can get this, what we call the RSA, and then including that on your resume, or your driver's license, or your first aid certification on your resume is really valuable if you have it. But if you don't have it, it is not a problem. There are other jobs that are available to you.
Yep. And in terms of certifications, just because you just mentioned the RSA, we've done a previous video on the top 10 jobs, like high-paying jobs, and there we have mentioned each and every certificate that you would need for that job. So if you want to go, just quickly head on to that video after you watch this video.
Exactly. So keep watching us, I promise.
So just before we get into the sweet spot, which is the resume and the template and the cover letter, just one question that a lot of people have, that do we need to put our availability on our resume when we're applying, or after?
I would say after. It doesn't need to be on your resume because, again, your availability could be different for different jobs, right? So it's best just to have that. It may be asked in the application process for that company what your availability is like, so then you would specify it then. But they may also ask you at the interview, or they may ask you after you've been offered the job.
And just because it's a pain point for a lot of people, jobs. Would you recommend applying for jobs only when you come in you have a permanent phone number and a permanent address, or would you recommend applying for jobs even if you're staying in an Airbnb or a hotel and while you're sorting out your accommodation?
Yeah, I think you could definitely start applying earlier than that. So you can apply when you are staying in an Airbnb, because on your resume you don't necessarily need to put your full physical address. You can put a suburb and city down on your resume.
Okay.
So you don't need to necessarily have a full physical address to apply for a job. And also having a job might also help you then determine what you can afford in rent and where you might want to live longer term. With our website, which we'll go through shortly, we have Job Shop. It is actually been designed that you can apply for the job before you leave home and arrive in Australia. But that's with you planning to arrive in the next couple of weeks. So it's not applying 6 months in advance.
I've got my CV. I just applied my cars.
Exactly. But we've designed that specifically because these employers were saying to us, how do we get in touch with these students who are arriving? We want to get in touch with them as soon as they possible.
Yep.
So we said, well, would you be willing to even interview them online before they arrive in Australia? And they said, yes, we would. So that's why that option is there. I would only recommend applying for the jobs before you arrive through Job Shop.
Yep.
All the other ones that you are maybe considering in Australia, I would wait till you get here.
Yep.
Definitely get an Australian phone number as soon as possible and use that on your resume, but you can use a suburb and city on your resume without a full physical address.
Got it.
One thing I will say though about the phone is my very big thing, as soon as you get your Australian mobile phone number set up, is please set up your voicemail.
Okay.
Set up a professional voicemail. Say, hello, you've reached the voicemail of Sarah Parrington. I'm unable to come to the phone right now. Please leave your name and number and I will get back to you shortly. A nice, short, simple, professional voicemail goes a long way, because as an employer, if I'm ringing your phone and there's no voicemail, A, have I got the right phone number?
Yep.
B, you don't know who I am to call me back. I don't want to keep chasing you to get you to come in. And also, that voicemail is my first representation of you as a professional, as you as someone who could work for me, what you can offer. So we really, really want you to leave a really good lasting impression on that first opportunity they've had to reach out to you.
Yep, makes sense. And because for me, because I'm from India, the resume that I had didn't work here.
Yeah.
And that I got to know through the workshop. But still, I was like, which resume works here? So we'll go to the StudyAdelaide website and quickly check out what the difference is in between the formats.
Yes, so we have what we call our employment toolkit on the StudyAdelaide website, and Anshul's going to take us through in a minute and show you how to access the employment toolkit so that you can download a resume template for yourself and also find our videos and other tools to help you build out your resume, cover letter, interview skills, all of that. So Anshul, take us through.
So because this website is a great asset, where can I find my resume? Guide me through it.
Great, so we're on the homepage right now. So what we're going to go to, guys, is the student portal, which is on the top part of the screen. And once we go into the student portal, we're going to scroll down there. And we've actually got it in two places. So you can go through Working in Adelaide, but I'm going to show you the faster way to get there, Anshul. So if you keep going a little bit lower, you will find key resources. And the third one along in that tab is the Employment Toolkit. And then you're going to go learn more. And this is taking you straight through to Employment Toolkit, which is free to access, available 24/7. You've got templates, tips and documents to help you build those out. But if you go further down, there's even videos and previous webinar recordings for you.
Oh, okay. So basically, I've already downloaded the cover letter and the resume template. So we'll go through the resume template first. Yeah,
so the resume template has been designed that you can literally just edit the fields and it holds the structure for you.
Okay.
So it's really helpful and it gives you the breakdown of how you would represent your information. So it's really important in Australia to include your education. And now your education, it doesn't necessarily need to have your high school in there, because if you're at university or TAFE or any other form of education, it's kind of implied that you've done your high school. But you might put in, if you've done a bachelor degree back home, you could include your bachelor. And in there you'll include as well where you did your bachelor. So say, for example, if it was in India, you can specify India. And then you'll also put your current qualification that you're studying for, and you'll put that you've started it. Say you started it this week. So let's say you started on the 27th of February, 2023, and you'll just say till present.
All right.
So you can represent that you're still going, or you can also put in an estimated finish date. So for example, if you started your bachelor, it's a 3-year degree, so you would estimate that you would complete that at the end of 2025.
And if it is hard for you to do the calculation, you can just find it on your
I know, I just did a quick back of my head. Oh gosh, that's right. And it's very fine, it's not a problem to include your education from overseas. I have education from overseas included in my resume as well.
Okay, that's great.
And then employment history. So anything that you've done as a job before. Now with this resume, if you haven't had employment history, you can take that section out of the resume. So you don't leave it there blank, you just take that section out and not have it showing.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
And in terms of the internships or projects, if I would have done a bachelor's degree in my home country, could I have included projects, or maybe if I worked with my professor, for example, can I put that in there?
Absolutely, and include in there as well, thinking about action words. What was it that you did on that project or working for your professor that demonstrates the skills that this job you're applying for looks for? And that's why you need to tailor your resume for each job that you apply for.
Got it. And then just a volunteering section as well. So even if you've done some work in your school or have been part of any clubs or been part of any NGO, that stands out as well, I believe.
Absolutely. Volunteering is a fantastic way of demonstrating skills. And I honestly think it's the one thing that's underrepresented by students many times on their resumes, because you volunteer because you just want to give. You want to give a bit of yourself, you want to give back to a community, you want to help. but it's actually also helping you at the same time. And I think that there's quite often a failure to want to utilize that and utilize the skills that you've demonstrated. But volunteering is a really great skill builder, so please incorporate that on your resume.
Lovely. A lot of great points here, because sometimes you have to tailor your resume as well. So for example, if you're applying for a retail job, if you're applying for a professional job, both of the resumes won't be the same, because you have to change some keywords, you have to change descriptions of maybe wherever you worked at, or in a project, if you were doing two task points, maybe include one in the retail job that adds value to the retail job.
Absolutely.
So those are a lot of key points that were mentioned there.
And also just add as well, proofread your resume, proofread your cover letter, proofread everything that you are sending to an employer, and perhaps even get a friend to proofread it for you. I don't know about you, Unsure, but when I'm reading something and I've written it and I've been working on it for so long, I actually don't reread things properly, so I skim it and I will miss errors that I've made, because I wrote it, so of course it's great, but it's actually wrong, so I needed someone else to have a look at it and tell me. So for me, I will still get someone to look at my stuff, even now.
Love that. And just quickly jumping onto the cover letter template as well. So
the cover letter template is great if you do need to provide a cover letter. So some of your casual jobs may not require a cover letter, but for the ones that do, it's a really different technique than you may not have had experience with back home. So here you are writing a letter to the employer, and it's really good and important to include the name of the person you're writing to. Now, if you're not sure who that person is, you can call up the company and find out who you should address your letter to. But it needs to be addressed to a person. It cannot be a generic "Dear Sir, Madam," especially if they've written on the advert who to address it to. And then you would continue on with the application. It usually has an opening paragraph about, I would like to apply for XYZ position, at which company, and it was advertised here, and here's what I think I can add. And then your next few paragraphs are opportunities to demonstrate the skills that they are looking for, with some more detailed examples than what you have in your resume. And then a really nice warm closing. I always like to leave it with a closing that is more of a call to action than a thank you very much for your time. You want it to be, thank you very much. I look forward to having the opportunity to express in more detail at an interview. You're giving them that call to action as opposed to being like, thanks for your time. You want to keep them engaged with you.
And just because a lot of new students will be applying for a bunch of jobs, so I believe they would need to tailor all of their cover letters to each and every job.
Every cover letter is different, unfortunately. It means a bit of work, but you do need to keep it updated for every job that you apply for. And also make sure you do sign off at the bottom, yours sincerely and your name. It does need to be a letter where you finish it off as well.
Makes sense. Obviously, go through the asset, go through the website. There are a lot of things. So from interview questions to cover letter templates to LinkedIn tips, networking tips. So a great asset to have. And just couple of last questions. One would be TFN. So because it takes about, so TFN stands for tax file number, which you'll need to provide to your employer so that they can put aside an amount of tax for you. And then at the end of the financial year, when you're doing all of your tax, you need your tax file number as well. And it generally takes up to 28 days.
It can take up to 28 days to receive your TFN, your tax file number. It's free to apply for. So you literally go to ato.gov.au, so the Australian Tax Office website, and you apply for your tax file number. And once you've got that, you can provide that to your employer. If you don't have a tax file number, you are taxed at a really high rate, so you do want to have a tax file number.
And just because I've gotten taxed at a very high rate, when you're ticking off, are you a Australian resident for tax purposes? Yes, you are. You don't tick no, because you'll get heavily taxed. Because a friend of mine and I got a job together, and she ticked yes, I ticked no.
And you're like, why is
that? And I'm like, why did I pay $400 in tax? I'm like,
I
should have picked.
It's 47% tax if you don't have a tax file number. So that's almost 50% of your paycheck is going to the tax man, which you don't need to do if you have a tax file number. So
And second last question.
Sure.
What is superannuation?
Great question. I had no idea what superannuation was when I started my first job. I was 14, working at McDonald's, didn't know what it was. Wasn't thinking about retirement at all. So superannuation is what we call our retirement funds in Australia. So retirement, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not old enough to think about retirement. But the superannuation is so that you can accumulate money throughout your whole working career in Australia, whether it is in a casual job or whether you're in your professional career. Mm-hmm. And it's money getting set aside on top of your salary, but it's always put straight into your superannuation account. And it keeps growing and building so that when you do retire, you have a nice amount of money sitting there for you.
Got it.
Now, you can choose who you want to use as your superannuation fund, and there are several websites where you can compare different funds to decide which one's good for you. Mm-hmm. But you also have the option, if you're really confused and I've got no idea which one to go with, your employer has a preferred one and they can just open an account for you as well.
Got it.
So your choice is either arrive to your employer on your first day with a superannuation account already, or give them the option to create one for you. Yep. Now, that being said, if you go from that job and you go start a new job, take your superannuation account with you and take it to the next job. Yep. And don't get a second one opened up, because every account you have has fees and you don't want to lose all your money in fees over all the years, right? So, and if you do end up with two superannuation accounts, which does happen, I had that happen. Okay. You can put them together. It's really simple. It was one form. It was so fast to put them together. So don't worry that now I've got two accounts. What do I do? Yep. Bring them together. Pick which one you prefer and bring it together.
Got it. And would you happen to know if I'm not staying in Australia and I go back to India or any other country, do I get that superannuation at some point in time or no?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So for example, you've come here, you've done your studies and you are not planning to stay in Australia any longer. You want to go home or go anywhere else in the world, and you're not intending to return to Australia to continue working. You can take your superannuation money out and take it home with you. So there is a process to take it with you. Okay. So say, for example, you've worked here for 3 years, whatever money's been set aside for you over that time, take it and go home with it, and that's a nice little bit of money to take with you. But if you choose to stay, it stays in the account and you keep building it as you work your career.
And just the last question, I got a tip that from one of your workshops, StudyAdelaide workshops only, that apply on the online website and then go to the same brand and hand in your resume and tell them, hey, I've already applied at your careers website. This is my resume. It will be great if you could put in a good word. So are there any tips that if 10 people are applying for the same job, what can a person do to stand out?
Yeah, definitely. So being proactive and showing initiative like that is fantastic. It's also possible that, for example, you see the job ad and you might have a question or two. Thinking through that question and thinking through, is the information freely available or is it a question that I really do need to ask? You can also pick up the phone and have a conversation with them, and make sure when you do speak to people, you provide your name, because then they'll remember who you are. Yeah. I get a lot of, for example, we have an ambassador program, and I get a lot of students come and talk to me about the ambassador applications when they're open and that they've submitted. Mm-hmm. But I have to tell you, 90% of them don't tell me their name. And that's such a missed opportunity, because you've come all this way over to talk to me and really show some great skills, but you haven't left your name with me. Yeah. And I don't ask, because I think that that's something you should be telling me. So, make sure you are leaving a firm, strong, good impression. But if you tailor your resume, tailor your cover letter, put in the really good effort, that will help you stand out as well.
Yep. So coming straight from an organization head. So these were some great tips. Thank you for this. No problem. And we will be shooting another video after this, which is how to get a job. So this was all the things that you have to do before you get a job. Now stay tuned so that you can get to know how to you can get a job. Yeah. Thank you for watching.
All the very best, guys, and we can't wait to see you in Adelaide.
And head to StudyAdelaide's website, because it's a great asset. And you might find absolutely you can find other templates, but having such a load of information in one place, I think that every student demands for, and it's right here. So
amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.